Okay, so get this. We're diving into the world of politics today and looking back at the 2024 elections to unpack some of the biggest winners and losers. And
Yes.
trust me, there are going to be some surprises here.
Oh, wait, okay.
Our source material today is an article from Fox News Digital called Six Top Winners and Losers Who Emerged in Politics in 2024.
Okay.
And one of the things that really stood out to me is how much individual personalities really shaped this election.
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't just about party lines this time around. Individual stories, charisma, they played a huge role. And I think one of the best examples of that is the fact that Republicans took total control.
Yeah.
The White House, the Senate, the House, a true clean sweep.
A clean sweep. It is.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for Republicans? I mean, besides the obvious, getting their policies through.
Well, I think it's more than just policy. Think about the courts, for example. This
Yeah.
kind of power gives them a chance to reshape the judiciary
Oh, wow.
for a generation. And that's a legacy that goes way beyond any single presidential term.
That's a really good point. It's not just about the immediate wins, but the long game, too.
Mm.
So in this environment of Republican dominance, who comes out on top?
Well, the most obvious winner is Donald Trump. I mean, to say his return to the presidency is unexpected is an understatement.
It's pretty wild to think about. After leaving office, facing those indictments, even battling out in the primaries, it's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
He even survived 2 assassination attempts.
It's hard to deny that dramatic narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And his supporters are calling this win the greatest political comeback in American history. Now, whether or not you agree with that assessment, it's a powerful story, and it resonated with a lot of voters.
It definitely grabbed everyone's attention. But while Trump was rising, someone else's political journey took a downturn. The article points to Kamala Harris as one of the biggest losers of 2024.
Yeah.
Her loss to Trump was surprising to many. What factors do you think contributed to that outcome?
Well, it wasn't just one thing, but stepping into Biden's shoes after he dropped out put her in a tough spot. I mean, she was carrying the baggage of the previous administration's policies, fair or not.
Right.
And despite a massive war chest, we're talking $1 billion in campaign spending.
$1 billion.
She couldn't overcome the desire for change that so many voters were clearly feeling.
You'd think that would buy you some serious momentum, $1 billion.
It shows that money doesn't guarantee victory.
True.
Her choice of Minnesota Gov Tim Walz as her running mate also drew criticism.
Yeah, the article quotes Rob Bluey of the Daily Signal as saying that choosing Walz was a disastrous decision that doomed Kamala Harris from the moment she made it. Strong words. So why would Shapiro have been a better pick?
Well, Pennsylvania was a key swing state, and Shapiro, as a popular incumbent governor, could have potentially swung those electoral votes in Harris's favor. Walz, on the other hand, represented a state that was already leaning Democrat.
So it's about more than just picking someone you get along with.
Right.
There's a whole chess game involved in choosing a running mate.
Exactly. It's about appealing to specific demographics and maximizing your chances in key states. It's a high-stakes decision that can make or break a campaign.
Speaking of unexpected players, Elon Musk really stepped onto the political stage this election. I mean, it's not every day you see a tech CEO becoming a political force.
No, it's not. His entrance was certainly unconventional. After the assassination attempt on Trump in July, Musk publicly endorsed him and became a very vocal presence on the campaign trail. And he even embraced the term dark MAGA to describe himself, which, for context, refers to a more intense, uncompromising segment of Trump's base.
Dark MAGA. It's not a phrase you hear every day. It seems like Musk really leaned into this new political identity. But this level of influence, some people worry about it. What are your thoughts on this potential conflict of interest?
I think it's a valid concern. I mean, his appointment to lead the Department of Government Efficiency alongside Vivek Ramaswamy, it does raise some questions about his motivations and whether his business interests could influence government decisions.
So he goes from building rockets and electric cars to potentially wielding serious political power. What do you think drew him to this world? It's a long way from Silicon Valley.
Hard to say for sure, but perhaps he sees politics as the next frontier where he can disrupt the status quo and enact change on a massive scale.
Yet it looks like he's already shaking things up.
Yeah.
But with winners, there must be losers,
Oh?
whose political fortunes took a hit this election.
Well, George Soros and his progressive agenda definitely faced a major setback. His initiatives, particularly in criminal justice reform, saw significant pushback, especially in California.
California pushing back against Soros. That's surprising. What happened?
Well, Californians overwhelmingly voted to roll back parts of Proposition 47, a Soros-backed criminal justice reform bill. They felt it was too lenient on crime.
So a swing towards a tougher on crime approach.
Yes, and we see this reflected in other parts of the country as well.
Hmm.
For example, Soros-backed DAs like George Gascon in Los Angeles and Pamela Price in Alameda County were either defeated or faced recall attempts. It seems voters are increasingly concerned about public safety and are looking for leaders who reflect those concerns.
So this shift in public sentiment could have a ripple effect on other progressive policies as well.
Absolutely. This election suggests a potential broader backlash against progressive policies, particularly those seen as soft on crime or out of touch with everyday concerns. It's a trend that will likely continue to play out in the coming years.
And this Republican wave didn't just impact the presidency and local elections. It also had a major impact on the Senate. The article mentions that several longtime Democrat senators lost their seats.
That's right. Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, and John Tester in Montana, all seasoned politicians, were swept out of office. These were not newcomers by any means. Brown and Casey had served in the Senate for decades, and Tester had been there for almost 20 years.
You'd think that kind of experience would count for something. What led to their downfall?
Well, the national political climate definitely played a role. These states all swung heavily for Trump,
Right.
indicating a strong desire for change. But there were also some state-specific factors at play, too.
Can't give us an example.
Sure, take Bob Casey's loss in Pennsylvania. His opponent, Dave McCormick, really hammered home the message of economic anxiety, blaming the Democrats for inflation job losses. He tapped into this feeling among voters that the economy just wasn't working for them, and that resonated especially in those Rust Belt areas of the state.
So even an experienced politician like Casey couldn't escape the national mood and those economic worries hitting voters close to home.
Right. It shows how national trends can really trickle down and impact those local races. It's a reminder that voters are paying attention to the bigger picture even when they're choosing their senators.
And speaking of shaking up the political landscape, this article also highlights J.D. Vance's ascent to the vice presidency. And I remember the left-leaning media was predicting he'd be a drag on the ticket, but it seems like they were wrong.
Yeah, Vance's performance definitely defied expectations. His favorability ratings climbed significantly during the campaign, going from 34% to 44%.
Wow.
He really made an effort to shed that unlikable label that some had attached to him.
So what did he do to change that perception?
He embraced a variety of platforms, from podcasts to press conferences, and even his debate performance was seen as a turning point. He came across as more relatable, less abrasive than his critics had anticipated.
So it sounds like he actively worked to reshape his image.
Yeah.
And it paid off.
It did. And at just 40 years old, he's now the third youngest vice president in American history.
Wow, that's pretty young to be in such a powerful position. What does that mean for his future in politics?
It definitely sets him up as a potential future presidential candidate.
Yeah.
There's already a lot of speculation about his ambitions, and some see him as a natural successor to Trump. In fact, this article even quotes Donald Trump Jr. as saying, "We're getting 4 more years of Trump and then 8 years of J.D. Vance."
That's quite an endorsement. So Vance goes from being a potential liability to a rising star in the Republican Party, possibly even a future president. It's amazing how quickly things can change in politics.
It really is. This entire election cycle was a testament to the power of personality and narrative. It wasn't just about policies. It was about who could connect with voters on a deeper level, tap into their anxieties and aspirations, and offer a vision for the future that really resonated with them.
And it looks like those who could tell a compelling story, like Trump and Vance, were the ones who ultimately came out on top. This whole idea of narrative in politics is fascinating. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Sure, think about Trump's comeback. He was able to tap into this sense of nostalgia, grievance, even resentment among a certain segment of the population. He offered this narrative of a return to a perceived better time, a time of strength, prosperity, and national pride. It was a powerful message that resonated with those who felt left behind or ignored by the establishment.
And it wasn't just about the words. Trump's persona, like his larger-than-life personality, played a huge role in crafting that narrative. Love him or hate him, he's a master of commanding attention.
You're absolutely right. He understands the power of spectacle, creating this captivating show that draws people in. And in today's media landscape, where information is consumed in these bite-sized chunks and attention spans are shrinking, that kind of showmanship can be incredibly effective.
It makes you think about how we consume political information these days. It's not just about reading policy papers anymore. It's about sound bites, viral moments, and social media trends.
Exactly. We live in this world of information overload, and it's so easy to just get swept up in the narratives that are presented to us, especially when they're packaged in a way that appeals to our emotions.
So how do we navigate this new political landscape? How do we make sure we're not just passively absorbing whatever's thrown at us?
I think it's more important now than ever to be critical consumers of information,
Hmm.
to question the narratives that we're presented with, to dig deeper, to seek out multiple perspectives. Don't just rely on one news source or social media feed. Challenge yourself to understand different viewpoints, even those you might disagree with.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
It's so easy to stay in our own echo chambers, surrounded by people who share our views. But to really understand the complexities of politics, we need to step outside of those comfortable bubbles.
Absolutely. And it's not just about staying informed. It's about engaging in thoughtful dialogue with those who hold different views. We need to learn how to disagree respectfully and constructively and try to find common ground even amidst our differences.
It's a reminder that democracy requires more than just voting every few years. It requires active participation, critical thinking, and a willingness to engage with those who see the world differently than we do.
Well said. Ultimately, the future of American politics, and indeed the future of our democracy, depends on an informed and engaged citizenry. A citizenry that is capable of discerning fact from fiction, of thinking critically about the narratives that shape our world, and of engaging in civil discourse even when faced with opposing viewpoints.
So there you have it, a deep dive into the winners and losers of the 2024 election, and a reminder that we all have a responsibility to be informed and engaged citizens. What do you think? What narratives are shaping your view of the world? Hit us up on social media and let's keep the conversation going.